Canberra and call the member for Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I join with my colleagues on this side of the House and thank the member for Griffith for bringing this motion forward as we approach the 105th annual observance of International Women's Day on the 8th of March. In particular, I note paragraph 3 of the motion, which acknowledges that there is still so much more work to be done in advancing the political and economic welfare of women at home and across the world. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is that last part of the statement that I wish to address, women across the world, and more specifically women in neighbouring countries in the Pacific, including Papua New Guinea, Bougainville, the Solomons, Vanuatu, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga and Timor-Leste. And I was pleased to join the member for Newcastle and the member for Forest with the then Minister Shobo at the end of last year, particularly on this issue in the Pacific region. Despite achievements in Australia, spare a thought for the women in Papua New Guinea, where 5 women die every day in childbirth, the worst maternal mortality rate in the world on our doorstep. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, if we look across the Pacific, those rates aren't much better in other countries and nations. So I'm delighted that the person who's doing more than anyone else in this space is the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Julie Bishop. And she has made it a particular passion and determination of hers to address gender inequality, particularly in our neighbouring region. And she has made sure that that is part of the government's priority in delivering aid to our neighbours. The members of the Human Rights Subcommittee of the Joint Standing Committee of Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade welcomed the opportunity to advance this agenda with a recent inquiry into empowering women and girls, the human rights issues confronting women and girls in the Indian Ocean, Asia-Pacific region. And we found some very stark examples of the problems our sisters in our neighbouring countries are experiencing. However, significant improvements under the leadership of the Minister for Foreign Affairs have been achieved through our aid program in 2014-15. And a new Gender Equality Fund and a revised strategic direction is increasing progress towards meeting our gender equality target and empowering women and girls. This fund supports commitments to advance international efforts on critical gender equality issues, including ending violence against women and girls and promoting women's leadership. And I was delighted that the Minister of Foreign Affairs made a statement only this morning setting out further strategy goals to empowering women and around the Gender Equality Fund, where she has once again committed more funds to deliver programs in our region. And I look particularly at the Pacific Women Shaping Pacific Development, which is now up to $320 million, and is specifically looking at increasing the effective representation of women and women's interests through leadership at all levels of decision-making. And of course that's very difficult given the lack of women in those leadership roles. Expanding women's economic opportunities to earn an income and accumulate economic assets, and we've been able to see firsthand some of those projects, particularly in Fiji and Vanuatu and the Solomons. And reducing violence against women and increasing access to support services and to justice for survivors of violence. And those are very big challenges in our region. Australia is working with church leaders from 4 of the 5 main churches across 30 communities in the Solomon Islands, targeting 10,000 men and women, trying to change attitudes and behaviours on violence against women. And I pay tribute to the Fijian Women's Crisis Centre, who have developed some excellent programs and I believe have established a template that can be delivered across the Pacific to other nations. And in fact was one of the recommendations of our committee that we look at empowering that group to deliver more programs to neighbouring countries. But other leadership issues, we need to build the capacity of our Pacific women, and I look at the Pacific Women Parliamentary Program, and so many of our colleagues on both sides of the House in this chamber work with our sisters in Papua New Guinea and Bougainville and the Solomons to try and progress their right to be able to speak up for women in their countries. And it was disappointing that recently in Vanuatu there were no women elected, but I do take the last few seconds to congratulate the President of Samoa for what he's doing for women in his country at the next election.